air miles, road miles, and ocean containers, and drive out cost and still meet the requirements for a timely supply?
Yeah, I mean, you need to look at your specific situation. You need to look at the holistically, as Kathy said. Do you need to transport it? If you need to transport it, do you need to transport all of it? Do you need to transport it that fast? And these kind of things. But at some point of time, you need to transport things. Okay, and then you need to make sure that it's transported in the most efficient way. And for you here in Brazil, I mean, there is some water, yes, on the coast, but when it comes to inland transportation, it's tricky. It's not easy to build canals for big ships, so probably you're also looking into railroads, and it's a terribly expensive thing. But you can look at around the world, and people did it in the past, and people still do it, like in China. They're building railroads, and it has two effects. First, it's an investment. Government spends money, so people are employed, and they build infrastructure. And I've been working for for Deutsche Bahn, and we did some benchmarking. Deutsche Bahn, so there is a lot. It's a small country, so for them it's very difficult to compete against trucks. Yeah, but they have lots of big network, so the network goes everywhere. Then we visited Canada. We looked at how Canada is doing it, the Canadian national train system and the train company. And the Germans went there and they said, "Ah, that's amazing. That's such a big country, the size of Brazil, maybe even a little bit bigger. That's amazing." And you know, they have trains that are 2 kilometers long. In Germany, it's only 700 meters. And you know what they do with the trains in Canada? They double stack the containers. We can't do it in Germany because of the tunnels and because of electricity. Oh, it's so easy for you in Canada to use a train. Then the Canadians came to Germany. And they looked at it and said, "Oh, wow, this is great. You own all these tracks that go everywhere. You know, we have just 2 lines going east to west, and then we have 3 lines going down to the US, and that's it. You know, most of the thing we need to feed with trucks, and then the end is also with trucks. You can go everywhere, and you own the track, whereas in Canada it's privatized. It's the tracks. You own the track, but competition needs to be on there. So you own all the tracks in Germany, so you can be on time, you can go everywhere. So the answer is you need to look at it specifically in Brazil, and you can look at other countries how they did it. And I'm sure if you want to invest, and I'm sure it makes sense, then you can find a solution.
Meu nome é... Tá ligado? Ok. Meu nome é Fernando Moura, eu sou diretor do CBEC. E a minha primeira pergunta é para o nosso amigo da Accenture. E depois eu tenho uma pergunta para a Kathy. Nesse mundo globalizado, você mostrou um slide muito ilustrativo em que temos sourcing no mundo inteiro, fornecedores fornecendo quase tudo para todo mundo. E, certamente, os fornecedores brasileiros não vão ficar fora desse contexto. Na verdade, já temos muitos fornecedores internacionalizados. E eu queria aproveitar a sua experiência visitando vários países para nos dizer quais os pontos fortes e quais os pontos fracos que você teve a oportunidade de notar nos fornecedores brasileiros em relação a essa competitividade global.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. And I sourced, not me personally, but my people sourced in Brazil oranges, tangerine, tapioca, all this stuff for food production. Very interesting exercise because you can also source the oranges in Spain and in Florida. Okay, so and there are differences to how business is done in Brazil, and I would like to take another minute to explain what I mean when you are satisfied with your suppliers. There's a nice study at the University at Lausanne. They look into how satisfied are you with your suppliers. And you can set up, and the consultants like to do that, you can set up a nice system with KPIs and are you on time, in full, I checked it and the quality is there, and all these kind of things, okay? You measure all of it. And then they looked into with which suppliers are you really satisfied, which is a different question. And they found out that the correlation between the KPIs, that I deliver everything on time and in full, and the satisfaction is not really great. The biggest correlation is how often do you talk and exchange with the supplier, and how often does he talk with you, and how many people talk with you, because they found out that those guys that are 99%, 99.999% on time, if there is one miss, you're pissed. He has been late, yeah? They will remember. But other suppliers, they will just call and say, you know, it will be a little bit late, do you really need it? Oh, no problem, I don't need that, okay? This kind of communication. In my experiences in Brazil, maybe you're not 99.999% on time, but you will let me know, because you're going to talk to me and, you know, you really need the thing. And so that is really strength. So improvisation and talking to the people and making sure there is trust and there is a relationship. I didn't use partnership. There's a relationship there. That is a real, real strength I found.
Agora ligou. A pergunta para a Kathy. Nós, no Brasil, temos abundância de quase todos os recursos. E isso que é uma bênção, ao mesmo tempo, olhando o resto do mundo, as necessidades do resto do mundo, essa bênção, de alguma forma, acaba atrapalhando os esforços para se inserir nessa cruzada para economizar água, economizar energia, cuidar melhor do lixo e tudo mais. É natural que as pessoas mais idosas, que viveram esse tempo todo com abundância de recursos, eles usam a água para lavar as calçadas, lavar seus automóveis, etc. E é muito difícil conscientizá-los de que eles têm que mudar. Mas, Kathy, você tem agora uma oportunidade de ouro aqui no Brasil. Eu, olhando a audiência, eu vejo que a gente tem quase que uns 80% de jovens, incluindo a mim, claro, né? Então, como que nós podemos sensibilizar os jovens brasileiros para essa importância de poupar os recursos naturais?
I recently did a presentation in Asia, and my daughter, I have two daughters, one of my daughters actually put together the PowerPoint presentation. She had called it Mom's Presentation. I get this call from Hong Kong the day before I'm supposed to speak in a panic. You have sent the wrong presentation. And I'm like, no, the presentation's right. No, you've sent the wrong presentation. It's called Mom's Presentation. I went, oh, that's the right presentation. My daughter did the slides. They said, it sounds so unprofessional. So they changed the name to Sustainability. But I think Mom's Presentation is a better name because, to your point, many of us in my age, we've just kind of grown accustomed to our habits. For those of us in the United States, there's so much we take for granted because it's all we know, it's all we've seen. I think perhaps it's similar with my new dear friends in Brazil. You have such a rich, abundant, wonderful, colorful country that it's easy, if that's all you see and know, to grow accustomed to having this. But especially for the younger adults and any students that might be here. As you go out into the world, and my travel has given me the opportunity to see so many countries and so many more people that don't have what we are so accustomed to. And it is these poorer countries that are suffering more from the consequences of our abundant consumption and are least prepared to deal with it at this point in time. So I hope through my presentations I can at least share and increase the awareness that all of us, 6.8 billion people today, share one planet and the resources on this planet. And the more we save, the more we will be able to help all of those that share this fragile environment. But this does put increasing pressure on Brazil, and I think you mentioned the Chinese are investing heavily, for example, in the continent of Africa, that also has many minerals and resources that they want. We all will be looking differently at water as it becomes more difficult to obtain clean water. And the developing nations will be more dependent upon the other nations of the world to bring forward the technology and innovation to help us save for our children and our children's children. So you gave me a great idea. I think I need to change the name of my back to Mom's presentation.
Vamos lá. Renato Franklin, da Vale. Eu primeiro gostaria de parabenizá-los pelas apresentações. Acho que ambos os temas estão bem em foco na área de suprimentos e a forma como eles foram abordados, assim, eu gostei muito. Mas eu queria explorar um pouquinho mais de um tema que foi abordado nas apresentações, principalmente ali pelo Ralph, quando a gente aborda a projeção futura, principalmente do mercado emergente, como que a gente está participando, e a gente vê a população economicamente ativa não crescer na mesma proporção. Hoje a gente já percebe um aquecimento de mercado, uma carência de recursos e de talentos. E a gente fala de várias estratégias para atrair talentos, para reter esses talentos. Mas, além de atrair e reter, a gente está precisando acelerar e muito o desenvolvimento desses talentos para eles poderem contribuir com inovação, e são eles que vão trazer a cultura de sustentabilidade. Eu queria saber quais estratégias vocês estão utilizando para acelerar o desenvolvimento, como que vocês estão lidando com esse contexto.
I mean, you said there is a lack of people. I mean, we have seen that between 2005 and 2015, there will still be another 20 million people added to the workforce in Brazil and another 15 million in the next decade, in 2015 to 25. So what you see is you have an economic growth of 5 to 7% this year, productivity like 2%. You can absorb all the additional people you get on the market. But it's not just about labor. So if you see what your new president needs to do, your old president, he got very famous in the world for one reason, fighting hunger. Your next president needs to work on education. In my presentation I said a company I really admire is Embraer. I mean, it's amazing. They could have said, we're going to build planes that are, like the Indians, cheaper. They need less maintenance, they're not so complicated, less computers on board, they are more robust. They didn't do that. They said, we're going to build the best 100-seater plane in the world. And they just did it. And you can't do it by just adding workforce. You can only do it when you have good engineers, people that are proud to work for a company like this. They're proud to work for Brazil. And today, I must admit, I feel more safe these days when I'm on an Embraer plane than when I'm on an Airbus. So education is key here. And I know it's a long-term thing, but if you don't start today, you miss tomorrow.
Another thing that I'm seeing is many of the colleges and universities around the world are now including sustainability as a recognizable and distinct track within their academic curricula. In supply chain for the schools that are offering both undergraduate and graduate degrees in supply chain, but in business administration, environmental, engineering, sustainability now is a pervasive theme being included within the academic curricula. What I have not seen, and I hope will change, is that businesses work more closely with the universities to make sure that they are articulating what exact skill and expertise in this regard they need and they are looking for, so that the schools can continue to develop the curricula and at least put the graduates out there with the skill and expertise the businesses of today and tomorrow will need.
Mais alguém? Lá no fundo.
Bom dia, meu nome é Luiz Lapa, da empresa Pipe de tubulações. A minha pergunta é a seguinte: eu estou preocupado com a velocidade que se está dando a todas essas ações de sustentabilidade, quando a gente vê, por exemplo, todo esse derretimento de todo esse gelo que existe aí nos polos, por exemplo, algumas ações, mesmo de governos desenvolvidos, na Europa, por exemplo, a França, está repensando que caminhos de ferro não são tão lucrativos, eles dão déficits. Então, estão pensando, talvez, em colocar caminhões, em vez de transportar por os TGVs, os trens rápidos, que não são rentáveis. Então, aqui no Brasil, nós estamos pensando em fazer esse trem rápido e já estamos vendo que não é rentável também, mas é um caminho de sustentabilidade. Então, todas essas ações me preocupa que não tem a velocidade que o mundo precisa para que a gente consiga, talvez, aumentar o tempo de vida da nossa espécie aqui no mundo. Como que vocês analisam esse aspecto macro aí de tudo isso?
The problems you articulated, I think, are very real, but on the flip side, there is good progress. There are many countries and cities that realize, with the large influx of people into cities, to avoid the gridlock and to ensure that the air remains clean and we protect the environment, that various forms of mass transit represent a key piece of the solution. If you take areas like Singapore or Stockholm, different approaches are being used, both to encourage the right behavior and to disincent the wrong behavior. As an example, and London has done the same, where they're using traffic congestion pricing, which says if you want from 7 in the morning until 9 in the morning to drive on this large freeway, highway, from home into the city to work, you can do that, but you're going to be charged more for the privilege. And once people in these communities, in Stockholm, for example, were being charged for the choice to drive during prime time on the busiest road, suddenly they were using the buses more often. They were using the rail lines more often. And for those cars that remained on the road, they consumed less fuel because they flowed more easily. So traffic congestion, fuel use, air pollution, and adopting the right choices became easier. So we struggle with the same in the U.S., in the state of California, where I've been from for 20 years. We have studied the high rail line for 20 years. We could have had it built and had people using it in the time we've taken to study the ramifications. And it's becoming more and more critical now that we move in that. So these debates will always be about balance. I think it will always have an element of political will or lack thereof. But I do think that the majority of the population and the younger population gets it and will continue to push for it and will continue to demand it. We also see for companies competing globally, you do need to kind of rise to the higher standard being set. And the Nordics and the EU are probably imposing more stringent expectations with regards to corporate carbon footprints than anywhere else yet. I do think other countries will ultimately catch up, but if you want to compete globally, you are going to have to address some of those challenges with your product design and with your sales strategy, even locally.
Yes, thanks. I mean, this is a very, very difficult question, but it's a very relevant question. Is a train going to be profitable? That gets right into the definition of what is profitable. If you look into all the gross-domestic products of all countries in the world, you add it up, okay, it comes to big, big number, to whatever trillions are, big, big number. And then there are scientists out there that try to assess how much damage we do to the planet by just burning oil. Once it's burned, it's not just the carbon dioxide, it's not there anymore. You don't get it anymore. You need to find different ways, better ways. If they try to assess how much is the damage of using all of our natural resources. It's a difficult thing, but they can come up with numbers. And numbers are higher, the numbers are smaller. But even if you say we take a small number, all the cost we do to this planet to create this wealth is higher than the wealth itself. Okay, so the cost is more than the 2 trillion of gross-domestic products. So we're destroying things. And when you say the train is not profitable, it is because we use the wrong measure. But who is going to decide? As long as the people decide, they vote for it, they say, I want to have a train because it is better for the environment, it is fine. And when you look into how optimistic we can be about the environment, there is one great example of this dilemma that if all countries in the world do their homework, I don't need to do it. So it's a big dilemma. Who is going to invest? Who is going to do it? And the example we have is with the ozone layer. I mean, it was crystal clear that if you destroy the ozone layer, there will be more radiation, it will be bad for your skin, there's cancer, but even more so, the plant's photosynthesis wouldn't work anymore properly. Now, you find the FCKW that contributes a lot to ozone layer destruction. You find in the refrigerators and so on. So it got exchanged. Today in Brazil and in Europe, you don't find a refrigerator anymore that uses the thing. And interestingly enough, even in China, they reduced it a little bit, but they invested in it. And it was the first example on a global scale that everyone invested for a better future. And now the magnitude of investment is much bigger with all the carbon footprint and so on. But it has been proven that it can be done. That's why I'm optimistic.
Mais uma lá no fundo.
Ok. Meu nome é Olaf Jentjens, represento a empresa Schultz, que fornece material de tubulação para a indústria de óleo e gás, principalmente. E estamos encontrando nesse sector cada vez mais a necessidade de fornecer com conteúdo nacional. E isso é uma regra, né, que foi introduzida no Brasil para proteger a própria indústria nacional contra material muito barato, né, influenciando tecnologia de fora, importação. E nós sentimos isso como uma proteção realmente do nosso investimento aqui no Brasil. E eu gostaria de saber como é que isso está sendo visto globalmente, internacionalmente, também o que outros países fazem contra isso, e também da Vale. O que a Vale também está fazendo nesse sentido, né? Eu conheço isso agora da própria Petrobras e da produção de petróleo, mas gostaria também de conhecer esse sistema da própria Vale.
Primeiro a Catherine, né?
Accenture expert. Question is, what is fair? I mean, you can always say globalization is not fair, but I'm absolutely sure it's fairer than not doing it at all. So if you look at also in the currency problems we have right now, I mean, what is the Brazilian government doing? They protect the reais. I mean, they do that. Now, is that fair? It's fair to the Brazilian people, and that is what they are there for. And what are the Chinese doing? I mean, they did this for whenever they invented renminbi. I don't know when it was, but they pegged it to the dollar, and you can say this has been unfair. But what is unfair? It allowed the Chinese people to get food, to get education, to have a better living. So yes, we in Europe particularly, we say, oh, now President Obama is, or not President Obama, but the Fed is buying all the government bonds. I mean, this is really interesting. And the price is going to be paid by the Chinese because they will not get their money back in 10 years. All the money they invested in government bonds in the US. So yes, it's not fair, but we need just to make sure that it's there is some balance, because otherwise, as soon as everyone starts fighting, then we lose all. Okay, then out of a sudden, this kind of game, we only have losers. So if yes, I don't like that your currency measures in Brazil as an exporter. Yes, I don't like that Brazil is protecting the Brazil